What's up guys, and welcome back to part 3 of the series on this Jeep. Now today we are going to be covering kind of like the final touches on the Jeep. So you guys saw the first 2 episodes. We did a deep cleaning on the wheels, we did a deep cleaning on the body of the vehicle. Now we just want to touch it up, make sure that everything's nice and clean and everything's all tidied up before we give it back to the KC Lights guys. So we're going to be wiping it down right now with some Meticulous Matte detail spray. Now you guys saw in our last episode we used a Meticulous Matte auto wash soap. Now we're going to be using the detail version of that. So this is going to be a great spray to use, especially once you're done washing your vehicle that has a matte finish or satin wrap. You know, it doesn't have to be just matte, it also works on satin finishes as well. And it's super easy to use and it's extremely great to use because, you know, whenever you're done washing your vehicle, you may have like some, you know, some drips, especially right here. Like check this out. I have some drips right here that they just kind of like lingered in the creases and the crevices of the vehicle. So I'm just going to be pretty much using this to wipe off that, you know, stuff. And it also has a sealant into it, so it actually leaves behind a layer of UV protection, and also helps restore the original look of your matte wrap. So if your matte wrap does kind of have more like a light haziness, this does help, you know, pretty much bring it back to its original look. It's super easy to use. All you have to do is pretty much spray directly onto the surface. And just like any other quick detail spray, all you want to do is make sure that you're using the cleanest and softest towels as you possibly can, and pretty much just give it a wipe down. Now usually, whenever you're using quick detail sprays, you kind of want to make sure that you're safe and precautious with the wiping technique. However, I literally just washed this car, so there's really nothing on here that can, you know, damage the paint. So once you've wiped it on, you do kind of have like a little bit of excess left behind. All you want to do now is grab a secondary microfiber towel and buff that in. And what that does is it pretty much buffs in that sealant formula into the matte finish wrap, and it pretty much reduces it to its original state. So you guys may have seen it did look a little bit shiny as I first applied it. That's completely natural. You know, whenever you apply a liquid onto something that's more relatively of a dry look, it's going to give it a shiny look. But once you buff it in, as you guys can see, it pretty much tones down and it gives it back the original look. Super easy to use. As you guys saw, it doesn't take all day. You know, you can pretty much do your entire vehicle in a matter of minutes. And it definitely does help out with keeping a layer of UV protection on there so that your wrap is not, you know, exposed to the harsh UV rays. You know, those harsh UV rays, they can actually dry out, you know, fade it, and it looks very terrible within a couple months. So make sure that anytime you have a matte finish wrap, especially, you want to make sure that you have the proper protection on there. And this also goes great as well for the wheels. So you guys saw the wheels, they are a matte finish. So they do have a matte finish, which means that I can actually use the Meticulous Matte detail spray on my wheels as well. So that's what I'll do right now. I'll actually grab my towels and pretty much do the same exact process as I did with the wrap itself. Spray it down, grab one of my towels here, and pretty much wipe in the product. And this also helps you kind of pick up any kind of brake dust that you may have missed behind. You know, usually with wheels like this, it's kind of normal that you have some dirt left behind if you didn't do like a full 100% thorough cleaning. So, you know, if you do happen to have anything left behind, you know, go ahead and use a detail spray to pretty much knock it off safely and pretty much get it off the surface without it scratching the rest of your vehicle. And just like that, you're pretty much done. So you can grab another secondary towel and just pretty much buff off any excess. And just like the wrap itself, your wheels will also have a nice layer of UV protection, and you can pretty much, you know, bring them back to their original look and get them looking nice and great. All right, so now that we're done pretty much wiping down the matte wrap, now we're gonna move on to the tires. So you guys saw us deep clean those tires. However, they're fully dry now. They're fully exposed. We used the degreaser, the All Clean, which was an all-purpose cleaner. It pretty much stripped off any kind of previous dressings and all the dirt and grime that was on there. So now what we wanna do is protect it. All right guys, so now it's time to apply some dressing on our tires. So luckily our tires are now clean, and I'm going to show you guys a different method as far as applying tire shine, especially when you have tires like this that have a lot of ridges, grooves, and it's kind of hard to get into with an applicator. We're going to be using a brush. So we're going to be using one of our flag tip brushes here. Now I usually like to dedicate one of the black and gray ones just for tire, just because the green ones I usually dedicate for cleaning my wheels, so then that way I don't get mixed up. And a great way to do this is pretty much grab your dressing. In today's case, I'm going to be using our natural shine. Now the reason I'm using natural shine is because I want to pretty much bring back the natural look of these tires. I don't want to give it a wet, greasy look or anything like that. I just want to make sure that the tires have a brand new look, and it's a water-based dressing, which means that it's a completely 100% dry to the touch finish that's not going to attract any dust. So check this out guys, It looks great just from like the little areas that we've been applying it to so far. Now the reason I'm using the brush is because the brush bristles are extremely flexible, which means that we can go ahead and pretty much apply it to this tire nice and easily and not have to worry about trying to get deep into all these little crevices, which as you guys can know, it's kind of a pain to try to get in there with the smaller applicator, especially because they're super aggressive, which means that, if you use a finer applicator, you may be kind of tearing up your applicator. So this is one great way to pretty much apply a dressing to these heavy duty off-road tires without you having to spend so much time getting into all these little ridges. I mean, check this out, guys. Super fast, super easy. I'm not putting too much effort into getting into all the little cracks and crevices. So just to show you guys how easy it is to pretty much apply dressings to these kind of tires. All right, guys, so pretty much once you're done applying your dressing, one thing that I like to do is grab a dry microfiber towel and simply buff off any excess. Now you can do this to pretty much wipe off any excess product that you may have gone overboard with. I know that myself, whenever I'm applying tire shine, sometimes I go a little bit crazy more than usual just because I want to make sure that it's extra shiny. But in this case, since we're using natural shine, we're not really going for that super wet look. We're going more for that, just that new kind of tire look. So it's not really designed to give you like the super deep wet shine that most people know and like. It's actually designed to leave more of a natural kind of finish, more as if it's like a brand new tire that you just installed into your wheel. So that's pretty much it as far as the tires. As you guys saw, super simple. I applied the dressing and pretty much finished one wheel in a matter of a minute, 2 minutes or so. So I'm gonna finish up the rest of the wheels and then we're gonna continue with the trims on the Jeep itself. All right, guys, so the next thing that we're gonna be worrying about is these trims right here. So we're gonna be using the same natural shine product because if you guys didn't know, these dressings, these water-based dressings, they can actually be applied to any kind of interior and exterior vinyl, rubber, and plastic surfaces. So we got rubber on the tires. We also have some plastic trim right here. So we're gonna be using it to condition and protect these exterior trims because as you guys can see, they are a little bit dried out. So we wanna make sure that we bring them back to life and have them protected at the same time. So I'm gonna apply 4 drops, blot that out, and check that out, you guys. Just right away, the huge difference that it makes in terms of the overall look of the trim. Huge difference, brings it back to life, and it makes it look much better and much more cared for, and it also layers it with some protection. So in the future, whenever you go out mudding again, mud and stuff like that, it's not gonna be pretty much sticking to this trim as bad. And it's also going to be protected against the harsh UV rays, which as you guys know, these plastics, they are extremely vulnerable to the harsh UV rays. So you want to make sure that they are always protected with the dressing, such as natural shine or whatever your favorite chemicalguys dressing is. I know a lot of you guys love VRP. You can actually use VRP in substitution, and the only difference is that natural shine leaves more of a natural look, whereas VRP leaves more of a high shine look. And you can pretty much apply these to all the plastic trim all around the vehicle. I'm going to be applying them to these little pieces down here as well. As you guys can see, it brings them back to life, gives them a whole new meaning. It looks much better as opposed to them just being like dry. And ultimately, pretty much the protection factor that we really want to take away from this is that it's going to have a barrier of protection, which is going to help with preventing a lot of contaminants from etching into the finish itself. And one last thing that I missed over here is these plastic door handles. The door handles need love too. So I'm going to apply a small drop of product onto my applicator. These microfiber applicators are pretty tangible, so you can squeeze them and you can actually kind of like put some pressure on it with your finger so that you have the ultimate precision whenever you're applying it to these very intricate areas. All right, guys, now one of the things that Eli did bring up for these headlights is he was asking me what he can apply on here that can actually help him kind of better see at night and whenever he's faced with the inclement weather. And another thing he had to say was that he gets a lot of bug buildup. He's pretty much looking for the best solution in order to have the ultimate clarity from your headlights at all times, because as you guys can see, this thing is hooked up with a KC light bar, has a ton of lights up there on the sides. It even has a cool light right here. If you guys didn't see, it has a light right here behind the wheel, which I thought was pretty cool and looks amazing. So the thing that we're going to be applying to these headlights is our Hydro Slick. Now, if you guys know about Hydro Slick, you guys know that it's a ceramic and it delivers an intense level of shine and protection, which is exactly why we're going to be applying it to the headlights right here. So I'm going to be applying it just as normal. So I'm going to grab 2 pea-sized drops. I'm using 2 very small drops just because I'm only working on this small little area. So I'm going to be applying it to the headlight right here. So just a nice little even application, you know, just applying it to your headlights. This is gonna pretty much provide the plastic headlight with an ultimate layer of protection against any kind of contaminants that comes its way. So it's gonna give it that super extreme hydrophobic layer. So any kind of water that gets on here is pretty much just gonna beat it right off. And in most cases, just make it fall right off entirely. So I'm gonna be doing this headlight as well. And like I said, we're gonna be pretty much covering all the headlights on this vehicle. And if you guys can see, there is a ton of lights on this vehicle that we wanna make sure that we protect and get them all nice and shined up. I'm also gonna be working on these lights over here right in front. I'm gonna apply a little bit more product. And Hydro Slick is extremely easy to use. You apply it, you let it sit for about 2 minutes or so, and then you wipe it off. You know, depending on the weather that you're at, you know, right now it is a little bit gloomy. It did get a little bit gloomy on us. So, you know, it is a little bit on the colder side, which is why I'm gonna allow it to sit up for 2 minutes. If you live in an area where, you know, it's pretty hot, then you may want to just let it sit for about 30 seconds, 45 seconds or so, and then wipe it right off. I'm going to finish doing the rest of the lights, and then I'm going to grab a towel and pretty much buff it off, because by the time that I'm done with the rest of the headlights, it'll be that time to pretty much wipe it off. So I'm going to coat the rest of the headlights, and we'll be right back with you guys. All right, guys, now one of the final touches that I completely forgot about was the undercarriage itself. We did an entire video cleaning the undercarriage, and I completely forgot that we had to protect it. So we're using our bare bones right now, which, like I mentioned to you guys at the beginning of the series, the bare bones is an undercarriage protectant. Now, this vehicle does already have a textured kind of coating on here, which works out great. You know, something like this helps out especially for people that drive these kind of vehicles and, you know, go overlanding and stuff like that. So that works out great. However, you can still layer it with some more protection, which is what I'm going to be doing right now. So bare bones, extremely easy to use. All you have to do is pretty much spray onto a microfiber applicator. And I like to get it a little bit saturated, and then you're pretty much just going to go straight into applying it. And bare bones does kind of leave a nice little glossy look to it. So if your liners are a little bit dried out, then bare bones works out extremely well, so that you can pretty much bring it back to life. Not only bring it back to life, but also layer it with some protection as well. And what this is ultimately going to do is pretty much help you out as far as, you know, keeping away a lot of dirt, mud, and things like that from sticking to these surfaces. Now, you know, these are pretty much the areas that usually get all the mud, because, you know, the wheels, they kick them up, and it pretty much kicks it onto these wheel liners. So having the ultimate protection on these areas is crucial, so that you have a much easier experience as far as maintaining them and keeping your undercarriage looking as great as possible. And you can also apply it to the frame as well. So I'm going to grab some bare bones, spray a little bit more onto my applicator, and then I'm going to apply it to the frame right here itself. And you guys will see right now just how much of a huge difference it makes. It brings it back to life. It gives it like that deep black high gloss look, and pretty much gives it a nice overall look as far as like the rest of the entire vehicle, especially since we've already applied some dressing onto the trim. So this is definitely going to be a nice little cherry on top as far as, you know, the overall look of your vehicle. And you can actually apply this to pretty much any suspension components, any kind of metal, plastic, all these little rods as well. You know, go ahead and coat them up, and it's pretty much gonna give them a nice coat of protection as well, and also bring them back to life. All right, guys, and that pretty much concludes this series. As you guys can see, this thing looks absolutely amazing. I myself, not so much. It's been a long day of detailing, but definitely worth it. This thing looks amazing, and I cannot wait to show it to the guys over at KC Lights. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Comment down below what you enjoyed about this series. And as always, my name is Joey. This is Chemical Guys Detail Garage. I'll see you guys next time.